Frameworks, The Price of Delusion, Chapter 2, Part 1. Two men in formal civilian suits were standing in front of room 3M242 as they approached the double doors. They had on those earpieces with corkscrew wiring, indicating that they were armed Secret Service. A third man, who stood adjacent to the door, was dressed in a colorful military uniform that was decorated with assorted medals. He was standing at full attention. The doors to the room were old, but they eloquently exhibited their fine brown inner mahogany woodwork that was lodged within them. The eyes of the two Secret Servicemen began to make contact with the general, but the soldier at the door stared directly ahead as if he did not see anyone. "We've been expecting you, sir, and everyone is present and accounted for, just as you requested," said Jameson, who was the leader of the two. "Good," said the general. "Shall we get on with this?" "Yes, sir," replied Jameson. He then turned to the soldier and said, "Guard, please open the door for the general." The guard, like an electronic doll, sprung to life, as if the right buttons had just been pushed. His facial characteristics changed, and he went right into action. He sharply turned, opened the door, and then held it for them. As soon as the door opened, the men were greeted with the aromas of cigar tobacco and cognac. The room itself was also comprised of old mahogany, which had a delicate trim around both the ceiling and the floors. Large, looming olive green draperies covered what appeared to be windows, but the cotton coverings were probably put there just for effect. To the left was a plain wooden table with chairs placed round about. Sitting in three of the chairs were other officers, one of which was puffing on a large cigar, leaning back and observing the five other men who were across the table from him. They were standing there almost huddled over several manila folders. Other open folders and paper were spread out across the table. They appeared as if they were intensely studying or looking for something. The light above the 8 men at the table was generated by several soft light bulbs that were positioned on the ceiling overhead. The table area itself was drenched in a focused beam of brilliant white fluorescent light. It was coming from the lamp that was directly set above the table, resembling a rectangular billiard table lamp. The smoke arose primarily from one cigar and from a few other accompanying cigarettes. They each contributed to layers that were lazy, full of smoke, and dancing slowly on the inside of the lamp's fluorescent beam of illumination. It added a unique eeriness to the background atmosphere. On the right of the room was another pair of Secret Service men with their corkscrew wiring and civilian suits. They were standing next to the desk that was flanked with two colorful flags. One was the United States flag, and the other was a bluish-gray flag of the United Nations. On the desk itself was a golden antique clock. It had pendulum-like golden balls that were rotating back and forth at the bottom of its glass encasement. The desk also had a ledger book sitting on it for people to sign. It was open and placed directly next to a few security badges. As soon as the major with the lit cigar in his hand noticed the general, he pushed back his wooden chair, stood up quickly, and began to belt with a loud voice, "Group attention!" Everyone froze from what they were doing and in unison stood up, swung around, and faced the general. Those in the military branch also saluted. "As you were," said the general. The others relaxed and then began to seat themselves back at their respective placements at the table.